The first snowfall of December had just begun dusting the small American town of Silver Creek when 14-year-old Emma Turner sat quietly in the back row of her classroom, sketching delicate stars in the corner of her notebook. Her classmates chatted loudly, swapping weekend stories with the sort of confidence Emma had never learned to possess. She kept her head low, her dark brown hair falling like a curtain that shielded her from the world. On most days, she preferred it that way. Silence was easier than trying to form words that always got tangled on their way out. Emma had not always been this quiet. There was a time, just 2 years before, when her house echoed with her laughter, when her father would lift her in a twirl after dinner, when her mother would sing off-key Christmas songs that made Emma giggle until her stomach hurt. But the accident changed everything. Losing her father had carved a hollow space inside her chest so big that sometimes she felt like her own heartbeat echoed inside it. Her mother, now overworked and exhausted, tried her best to carry both their worlds. But the silence that filled their home felt heavier than ever. Most people at school simply assumed Emma was shy. Some thought she was aloof. Others didn't think about her at all. Only one person really noticed her, Mr. Jacob Collins. The school's new art teacher. Mr. Collins had arrived 3 months earlier, bringing with him mismatched scarves, a soft smile, and the kind of patience that made even the most restless students want to slow down. He taught his classes as if every student held a story worth listening to, and he had noticed Emma from the very first week, the way she drew quietly, the way she avoided eye contact, the way her shoulders tucked inward as if she was trying to make herself smaller. He also noticed the stars she doodled every day. One Friday afternoon, as the class packed up to leave, Mr. Collins approached her desk. "Emma," he said gently, "may I see the stars you've been drawing?" Her hand froze. She hesitated. No one ever asked to see her work. Reluctantly, she tore the page from her notebook and handed it to him, her cheeks warming with nervousness. Mr. Collins studied it carefully. "These are beautiful," he said. "They feel kinda alive, like they're whispering something." Emma's heart fluttered. Whispering something. No one had ever described her drawings like that. "Have you ever thought about joining the Winter Art Showcase?" he asked. Emma's eyes widened. The art showcase was the school's biggest event of the year, where students displayed their best pieces. Hundreds of parents attended. She shook her head quickly. "I couldn't," she whispered. "Why not? I'm not good enough. And people, they don't even know me." Mr. Collins gave her a thoughtful look. Sometimes the quietest people have the most to say, and sometimes, Emma, silent hearts speak loudest. His words stayed with her for days. At home that evening, Emma found her mother asleep at the kitchen table, still in her nurse's scrubs, dinner untouched. Emma gently draped a blanket over her and placed her lunch container in the sink. She wished she could tell her mother how lonely school felt, how hard it was to speak up, how frightened she was of disappointing anyone, especially her father, who had once told her she could paint her own universe if she wanted to. Instead, she walked quietly to her room, opened her sketchbook, and began to draw. But tonight, the stars looked different. Instead of sketching them in the corner of the page, she started filling the whole sheet, drawing galaxies swirling into one another, each star shining with a quiet intensity. She drew until her hand ached and sleep pulled her away. Over the next week, something inside her shifted slowly, tenderly, but undeniably she began spending lunch hours in the art room, working on a piece she still wasn't sure she would show. It was a painting of a girl sitting under a sky full of stars, each star glowing softly as though carrying a message no one else could hear. The girl in the painting wasn't smiling, but she wasn't sad either. She looked hopeful. Maybe Emma wanted to feel that way too. Mr. Collins never pushed her. He simply offered advice, softened colors, and encouraging smiles. But he could see her growing inch by inch, brushstroke by brushstroke. Still, doubt clung to Emma like static electricity. What if no one liked her work? What if they laughed? What if she embarrassed herself? Her father's voice echoed faintly inside her memory. "Courage isn't about being fearless, Emmy. It's about speaking when your heart is shaking." By the time the day of the Winter Art Showcase arrived, Emma's stomach felt like butterflies were rioting inside it. She almost backed out twice. But Mr. Collins met her near the entrance, adjusting the colorful scarf around his neck. "You ready?" he asked. "No," she admitted. He smiled. "Good. That means it matters." The gymnasium was glowing with string lights and decorated with tables displaying dozens of student artworks, sculptures, portraits, landscapes, digital art. Parents and students moved around, admiring pieces, chatting, laughing. The noise alone felt overwhelming. Emma placed her painting on the display stand, her hands trembling. She stepped back, staring at it. wondering for the thousandth time if she had made a huge mistake. Then she heard someone say, "Wow, who made this?" A small group of students gathered around her painting. She froze, heart hammering. A girl from her math class leaned forward. "This is really beautiful," she murmured. Emma's breath caught. A boy she barely knew added, "It feels like the stars are trying to tell a story." Another parent whispered, "It's emotional, so peaceful, so real." Emma's eyes stung with unexpected tears. For the first time in so long, she didn't feel invisible. But the moment that changed, everything came a little later. An elderly woman with silver hair and a cane approached her painting slowly, studying it with watery eyes. She wiped her cheek, turned toward Emma, and softly asked, "Did you make this, dear?" Emma nodded shyly. The woman took a shaky breath. "My husband passed away last year," she said, voice trembling. "He used to tell me that even when he was gone, he'd be watching me from the stars. When I look at your painting, I feel like he's saying hello." Emma felt her own heart crack open. Something warm, powerful, and freeing poured inside her, like the universe itself was whispering back. She didn't know what to say, but the woman simply hugged her gently. "Thank you," she whispered. "You gave me a piece of him tonight." When the woman walked away, Emma covered her mouth, overwhelmed. She had drawn those stars because they reminded her of her father, and now her painting had comforted someone else too. Her silent heart, for once, had spoken loudly throughout the night. More people stopped by, admiring her work, asking about her inspiration, praising the emotion her painting carried. For a girl who had spent 2 years fading into shadows, it felt like stepping into sunlight for the first time. Even her mother arrived halfway through, having rushed from the hospital with tired eyes and flushed cheeks. When she saw the painting, she brought a hand to her lips. "Oh, Emma," she whispered, "it looks like your father's sky. He used to tell you the stars were your friends." Emma felt herself smile, small, but real. "He'd be so proud of you," her mother said, hugging her tightly, and for the first time since the accident, Emma allowed herself to believe it. Near the end of the event, the principal stepped on stage to announce the winner of the Most Heartfelt Piece Award, a special category added that year to celebrate emotional impact. When Emma's name was called, the room erupted in applause. She wasn't expecting it. She wasn't prepared, but as she walked to the stage, hands shaking, eyes shimmering, she realized something profound. People had heard her, not through loud words, not through confidence or speeches, but through art, through emotion, through the gentle, honest truth she had poured silently onto a canvas. Standing on stage, she scanned the crowd, her mother beaming, the elderly woman smiling warmly, Mr. Collins giving her an encouraging nod. Emma cleared her throat. She hadn't planned to speak, but the words came softly, sincerely. I used to think being quiet meant people couldn't hear me," she said, "but tonight, I learned something. Sometimes silence holds the strongest feelings, and sometimes, even when you think no one sees you, someone does." She paused, voice trembling. "I made this painting when I felt lost, but if it helps someone feel seen, then maybe being quiet isn't a weakness. Maybe it's another way of speaking." The audience grew quiet, the kind of quiet filled with emotion, not emptiness. "Thank you," Emma finished softly, "for listening." She stepped down, feeling lighter than she had in years. In the weeks that followed, everything changed, not in loud, dramatic ways, but in soft, meaningful ones. People at school began greeting her, asking about her art, inviting her to sit with them. Emma didn't become the loudest person in the room. She didn't need to. She simply opened up little by little, letting her voice stretch, letting her presence grow. Her artwork was framed and displayed in the school hallway with a small plaque. Beneath it, "Silent Hearts Speak Loudest" by Emma Turner. Every time she walked by it, she felt a quiet pride bloom inside her chest. But the biggest change was in the way she saw herself. She was no longer the girl hiding behind her hair, swallowing her words, living in the shadows of grief. She was someone who had touched lives, someone whose silence had healed someone's heart, someone whose father would look down at the stars and smile. And slowly, she began creating again paintings that reflected pain, hope, love, loss, courage, paintings that spoke even when her voice trembled, because Emma had learned something she'd carry for the rest of her life. Winter melted slowly into spring, and with it, Emma felt the world around her transform in gentle, almost miraculous ways. The snow that once muted the entire town gave way to budding blossoms, chirping birds, and sun-drenched mornings that no longer felt heavy. Emma found herself walking to school with a lighter step, the cold no longer biting at her bones. and the silence no longer suffocating her chest. Though she still kept mostly to herself, she felt a strange, warming shift in the way people treated her. A few of her classmates would smile at her in the hallways, not the pitying kind, but genuine smiles that carried a soft acknowledgement. Some even asked about her artwork, and Emma, though shy, found herself speaking a little more each day. Not loudly, not perfectly, but honestly. It was during one of these early spring mornings that a boy named Dylan approached her at her locker. He was tall, athletic, the kind of student who always had someone waiting to talk to him. But today, he stood alone, hands in his pockets, an uncertainty in his posture she didn't expect. "Hey," he said, offering an awkward half-smile. "You're Emma, right?" She nodded cautiously. "I saw your painting at the showcase. The one with the stars." He shifted his weight, looking suddenly nervous. "It was really powerful." Emma blinked, surprised. "Thank you. My younger sister passed away last year," he said, voice softening. "Some nights I look at the sky, and I feel like she's still there. When I saw your painting, I don't know. It meant something." Emma felt a tenderness spread through her chest. She hadn't known Dylan carried that kind of grief. She hadn't known her art could touch someone who looked so whole from the outside. "I'm glad it helped," she whispered. He nodded, and for a moment, neither of them spoke, but the silence didn't feel awkward. It felt understood. Before he walked away, he added, "You're really talented. You should keep drawing." Emma watched him go, her heart fuller than it had been in months. Spring brought more changes, some small, some meaningful. Emma's mother started taking her afternoon breaks at home, just so they could spend a few minutes together before her night shifts. They cooked simple dinners, laughed at burnt pancakes, and sometimes sat quietly on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars rise above the quiet town. Her mother seemed lighter, too, as if seeing her daughter come back to life had healed something in her own heart. One evening, after finishing dishes, Emma found her mother sitting at the table with a worn envelope clutched in her hands. "What's that?" Emma asked, gently. Her mother exhaled deeply. "A letter your father wrote to you before the accident. I found it tucked inside one of his old books." Emma's breath hitched. Her mother handed her the envelope, her fingers trembling just slightly. Emma opened it slowly, as though afraid the paper might crumble if she rushed. Her father's familiar handwriting stretched across the page, messy, looped, warm. "My Emmy, if you're reading this, it means you're growing up faster than I wished you would. I hope you're still drawing those stars you love so much. I hope you're still dreaming big. One day, you'll face moments when you'll feel invisible, unheard, or unsure of yourself. But listen to me, sweetheart, your heart is louder than you think. You were born with a quiet strength that even you don't see yet. And when the world grows dark, don't hide your light. Let it shine in your own way, at your own pace. I love you, always. Dad. By the time she reached the last line, Emma was crying silently. Her mother wrapped her arms around her, holding her tight as the weight of love and loss and healing washed over them both. It felt like her father had reached across the stars just to remind her of who she was becoming. As spring turned into early summer, Mr. Collins announced a special project, The Stories We Carry, a collaborative art installation that would be displayed at the town's annual spring fair. Every student would create a piece revealing something personal, something meaningful, a moment, a memory, a lesson that shaped them. The idea terrified Emma. Sharing her art with the school was one thing, sharing a piece of her heart with the entire town, that was different. But she remembered her father's words, and she remembered the elderly woman at the showcase, and Dylan, and herself, the girl who was slowly learning to speak again, so she agreed. Over the next few weeks, she worked tirelessly on a new piece. It was more ambitious than anything she had ever attempted. A large canvas that filled almost half the art room table. She painted a girl small, fragile, sitting alone in the dark, but around her were dozens of glowing stars, each one connected by faint, golden lines, forming constellations of memories, hopes, and invisible threads linking her to others. And above the girl, she painted a message in soft, sweeping letters: every quiet soul carries a universe. She didn't tell anyone what the painting meant. She didn't have to. When the spring fair arrived, the gymnasium was once again filled with people, families, teachers, townsfolk, friends. The air buzzed with excitement. The smell of fresh popcorn drifting from outside. Emma stood beside her display, nerves rippling through her body. She didn't expect the reaction her piece would bring. A teenage girl with braces stood in front of the canvas for nearly 15 minutes, silently wiping her tears. A middle-aged man whispered, "This This is what grief looks like, and healing. A young boy tugged on his mother's sleeve and said, "Mom, the stars look like they're talking to her." Even strangers thanked Emma quietly for painting something they didn't have words to express, and when Emma turned around, she found Mr. Collins standing behind her with a proud, tear-bright smile. "You did it," he said softly. Emma swallowed. "I was scared." "Good," he chuckled warmly. "The best art always begins with a little fear." She smiled a full, genuine smile that reached her eyes. The fair ended with lanterns released into the darkening sky, each one lifting like a floating star. Emma stood beside her mother as they watched hundreds of lights drift upward, illuminating the night. "They look like you're painting," her mother whispered. Emma nodded, feeling a swell of emotion deep within her, and for the first time in years, she felt whole, not because her grief had vanished, not because she had become loud or fearless, but because she had finally understood something powerful. Her silence was not emptiness, it was depth, it was strength, it was a different kind of voice. One that touched people in ways, words sometimes could, single quotes T. As the lanterns shimmered across the sky, Emma felt her father's presence, not in sadness, but in warmth. She held her mother's hand and whispered into the night, "Thank you for teaching me how to speak." And somewhere between earth and stars, in the quiet, gentle language she had finally learned to understand, she felt the universe whisper back. Summer arrived in Silver Creek with the scent of freshly cut grass, warm winds drifting through open windows, and a newfound sense of possibility lingering in every corner of town. For Emma Turner, the season felt like a gentle rebirth, not loud or dramatic, but steady and warm, like sunlight slowly melting away old frost. By July, Emma had fallen into a peaceful routine. Mornings were spent helping her mother with small chores, afternoons painting near the large living room window, and evenings sitting on the porch steps as the sky bloomed into streaks of pink and lavender. The quiet moments no longer felt heavy. They felt comforting, a reminder that healing wasn't a race, but a slow, soft unfolding. One afternoon, while cleaning the attic with her mother, Emma discovered a dusty box labeled "Dad's Things, Keep Safe." Her mother froze, her hand lingering on the box for a long moment before she whispered, "I haven't had the courage to go through this yet." Emma placed her hand gently on her mother's arm. "We can do it together." Inside the box, they found old photographs, her father holding Emma as a toddler, her parents laughing in front of the old blue pickup truck, Emma clutching a paintbrush with her father kneeling proudly behind her. Beneath the photographs was a wooden sketchboard, its surface smooth and worn from years of use. Emma lifted it with reverence. "This was his," her mother nodded, eyes glistening. "He used it for every landscape he painted. He would have loved to see you using it." Emma ran her fingers along the wood grain. It felt warm, almost alive, as if the memories embedded in it could travel from his hands into hers. For the first time in a long while, Emma didn't feel the sharp pain of loss. She felt gratitude for the pieces of him that still lived in the world, guiding her even now. She decided she would use the sketchboard for her next piece, and this time, it wouldn't just be for a school showcase. She wanted to paint something that wasn't about grief, but about hope. Later that month, the local community center announced an art contest themed Voices of the Heart. Winners would have their work displayed in the town museum for an entire year. Emma felt a spark ignite inside her, a quiet but steady flame. Mr. Collins, who had continued mentoring her through summer workshops, noticed the light in her eyes when she picked up the brochure. "You're thinking about entering," he said, though it wasn't a question. Emma hesitated. "It feels big." "It is," he agreed, "but so are you." She looked down, shy but encouraged. "I don't know what to paint." He studied her thoughtfully, then asked, "What do you want people to feel when they look at your work?" Emma thought long and hard before answering. "Hope," she said finally. "I want them to feel hope." Mr. Collins smiled. "Then start there." For days, Emma couldn't stop thinking. Late at night, she lay in bed imagining colors, shapes, moments, stories, anything that could capture the essence of hope without using a single word. Then, one evening, while sitting on the porch steps, she noticed a small child across the street. The boy looked about 6 years old, holding a bike too big for him. He climbed onto it, wobbled, and fell immediately, but instead of crying, he got back up, brushed off his knees, and tried again, and again, and again. Emma found herself smiling softly. Hope, she realized, wasn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes, hope was simply persistence. Trying again, rising again, believing again. She picked up her father's sketchboard. She began to paint. Her new piece took nearly 3 weeks. each stroke layered with emotion, patience, and quiet determination. She painted a young girl standing at the edge of a vast field, the sky exploding into a brilliant sunrise before her. The girl wasn't running or shouting, she simply stood there, shoulders squared, eyes forward, her small figure illuminated by the promise of a new day. In the girl's hand, she painted a single glowing star, a symbol of all the voices she had carried, all the silent hearts she had learned to hear. When the piece was finally finished, Emma stepped back and felt a strange mixture of pride and vulnerability. It wasn't a painting of sadness, or loneliness, or even grief. It was a painting of becoming, of stepping into the world, even with trembling legs, of choosing to rise. She titled it, Light Before Dawn. The day of the contest arrived, brimming with nervous energy. Artists and families filled the large community hall, colorful displays lining the walls. Emma stood quietly near her painting, fingers intertwined, heart thundering in her chest. Her mother stood beside her, squeezing her hand. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. Mr. Collins approached a moment later. "No matter what happens today, this piece is a triumph." Emma nodded, though she wasn't sure she believed it yet. Judges moved from display to display, discussing techniques, emotional impact, and originality. When they reached Emma's painting, they paused longer than usual. One judge leaned closer, tracing the air with her finger. "This isn't just art," she murmured. "This is a story." Another added softly, "This is what hope feels like." Emma's breath caught. After what felt like an eternity, the judges stepped onto the stage to announce the winners. Emma gripped her mother's arm. Third place went to a high school student for a vibrant mosaic. Second place went to a college freshman for a breathtaking portrait. Then the hall grew quiet. And first place, the announcer said, goes to Light Before Dawn by Emma Turner. Applause erupted around her, loud, exuberant, full of warmth. Emma's knees weakened, and tears blurred her vision. Her mother pulled her into a tight embrace, whispering, "He's smiling down at you, Emma." "I know he is." Mr. Collins wiped a tear from his cheek, his voice thick with pride. "You spoke without saying a word, and they heard you." Emma walked slowly to the stage, each step steady and sure. She accepted the award, her hands trembling not from fear, but from something far more powerful, belief. When she turned to face the audience, something inside her shifted. She felt tall, bright, alive. For the second time in her life, she decided to speak in front of a crowd. "I used to think hope was something you had to shout to be heard," she began softly, "but I learned that sometimes, the quietest moments carry the biggest truths. This painting is about finding light even when you think there isn't any, and it's about believing in yourself, even on the days when you feel small." Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. "If you're going through something, if you feel alone, just remember, even a small light can guide you through the dark. Sometimes the softest voices carry the strongest message." The room fell into a deep, moved silence, and for the second time, Emma realized they were listening. Her painting was later displayed in the Silver Creek Museum, a quiet space with high ceilings and sunlit walls. Visitors stopped to admire it, some leaving notes next to the display. "It made me cry in the best way. Gave me courage today. I saw myself in her. Thank you for this." Emma read each note with her heart trembling, warmed by the knowledge that her once silent voice was now echoing far beyond what she could have imagined. And in the gentle quiet of the museum corridor, she could almost feel her father beside her, proud, present, a soft star shining in the background of her growing universe. That night, sitting on her porch under a sky full of constellations, Emma whispered, "I'm still listening, and I'm still speaking." The stars glimmered softly, as if answering back. Because some truths don't need volume, some courage doesn't need noise, some hearts don't need to shout to be heard. And Emma Turner, the girl who once felt invisible, finally understood. Silent hearts don't just speak. They shine, they guide, they change lives. And sometimes, they change the world.